It was just past 1 a.m. when I heard her key in the door. I was already sitting in the dark on the edge of the couch waiting. Not pacing, not drinking, not saying anything to myself. I just sat there, still, like the air around me had frozen. Lana stepped inside and immediately stopped cold. Her eyes flicked down to the hallway floor where I had left 2 bags. One was her old roller suitcase, the same one she used every time she went on work trips, the one with a half-broken zipper and the purple luggage tag she refused to replace. The other was her gym bag, the one that normally lived in the trunk of her car under a layer of receipts, yoga mats, and fast food napkins. She hadn't brought that bag into the apartment in over a year. On top of the bags were 2 items. A single key to our apartment detached from her ring, and a thick white envelope. She didn't say anything at first. Just stared. She was wearing a navy blue blouse I didn't recognize and a coat that wasn't hers, definitely not something from our closet. Her hair was curled, not like rushed morning waves. This was full-effort date-night styling. And the scent of perfume, something floral and sharp, hit me even before she shut the door behind her. Not her usual scent. Not even close. When she finally moved, she didn't go for the envelope. She bent down and took off her heels slowly, deliberately, like she was trying to stretch the moment. Then she looked up at me, standing barefoot in the doorway with her coat still on. "What is this?" she asked, gesturing toward the bags. She kept her voice calm. Too calm. "You tell me," I replied, not moving from the couch. She frowned like she was offended. "You're seriously going to accuse me of something without even asking me first?" I didn't respond. I just looked at her. It was quiet, except for the soft hum of the fridge and Sam's breathing from his dog bed in the corner. Eventually, she picked up the envelope and opened it. I saw her eyes narrow as she read through the pages, hotel confirmation printouts, dated and timestamped. 1 room. 2 adults. Booked last Wednesday. Checked in Friday night. Checked out Sunday. She took longer than she needed to read it. I knew she was stalling. Calculating. "That was work," she said finally, looking up with a practiced expression. "A reward for team leads. The hotel gave us free rooms, just a little company perk. I didn't think you'd make it weird." 2 adults, I said flatly. "We were assigned partners. I didn't choose the reservation." "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" I asked. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed again. She turned her head a bit, like she was still considering her angle. Like this was a negotiation. "I didn't tell you because I knew how it would sound," she said, brushing hair behind her ear. "I thought we were past this kind of jealousy." There it was. Deflection. Control. Language twisted just enough to make me seem like the problem. "You stayed at a hotel with someone named David Elms," I said. "You told me you were at a women's leadership retreat. You even posted a fake Instagram story. There were hashtags, Lana." She didn't answer right away. Her jaw clenched. Then she exhaled. "Okay," she said, a little more defensive. I shouldn't have lied. But nothing happened. It was just one of those things where I didn't feel like arguing. I didn't want to have to explain myself. So I made it easier. "Easier?" I repeated bitterly. She stepped forward. "You always do this. You make everything so dramatic. You dig through my stuff and you build these stories in your head. You don't ask, you snoop." And there it was again. The pivot. She didn't deny the lie, she just tried to make my reaction the problem. My audacity. My snooping. As if discovering the truth meant I had betrayed her. "I didn't go through your stuff," I said. "You left the itinerary in your coat pocket. The one you told me to take to the dry cleaner because you were running late. You left the truth in plain sight." She stared at me. No apology. No admission. No tears. Just a tightening around the eyes. Her voice faltered for the first time. "You don't know everything," she said. I stood up. Slowly. I wasn't angry, not the way she expected. I wasn't shouting or pacing or pleading. That seemed to throw her more than anything. "I know enough," I said. "Enough to know I don't trust you. Enough to know you weren't planning on telling me any of this." She bit the inside of her cheek. I'd seen her do that before, when she was about to say something she'd regret or when she was deciding if she should lie again. "You're blowing this out of proportion," she said. "No," I said. "You already did that. I'm just cleaning it up." She didn't move. I reached for Sam's leash. Our golden retriever perked up immediately, wagging his tail, oblivious to the tension in the room. I clipped it onto his collar and walked to the door. Before I stepped out, I turned back to her. "You have 2 bags here," I said. "When I get back, one of them should be gone. Which one is up to you?" I didn't wait for a response. I closed the door behind me and stepped into the hallway, the cool air hitting me like a slap. I heard nothing from inside. No footsteps. No suitcase being moved. Just silence. I walked Sam in a big loop around the neighborhood. My feet moved automatically, but my brain was running laps in every direction. I thought about the months leading up to this. The missed calls. The late nights. The perfume I didn't recognize. The way her phone was always face down. The new jewelry she said was from a client gift basket. How long had I been ignoring the signs? I knew something had been slipping between us. Not in a loud, dramatic way. It was more like rot beneath paint, unseen, slow, corrosive. She had been fading, piece by piece. First, she stopped asking about my day. Then she stopped making coffee in the mornings. Then came the smiles that didn't reach her eyes. And now this. When I got back to the apartment, the lights were off again. Sam walked in before me and went straight to his water bowl. I hesitated at the door. The bags were still there. But only one. Her gym bag was gone. So was the envelope. And the key. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me, the latch clicking louder than usual. I didn't go looking for her. I didn't check the bedroom to see if she left a note. I knew she hadn't. I just sat down on the couch, still wearing my jacket, and stared at the place where her suitcase had been. Not surprised. Not relieved. Just still. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, knowing that something had finally snapped and that whatever came next wasn't going to be a conversation. That night, after Lana left with one of the two bags, I laid awake for hours. Not moving. Not crying. Just thinking. Staring at the ceiling in a dim room that suddenly felt too big, too hollow, too unfamiliar. The fan above me spun in slow circles, barely audible, but it gave me something to focus on besides the ache in my chest. Sam, our golden retriever, slept curled up at my feet, blissfully unaware that the fabric of our life had just been torn. And my brain wouldn't stop. It replayed everything, not just the confrontation, but every moment that led up to it. Like some cruel highlight reel I hadn't asked for. You don't realize when someone starts disappearing. You only recognize it when they're already gone. And that's exactly what Lana had done. Not all at once, but in slivers. She vanished in pieces, subtle, almost invisible pieces that I hadn't thought to count. I remember how she used to laugh at my dumb jokes. I mean really laugh, like throw her head back, eyes-watering kind of laugh. And then, one day, she just didn't. She'd smile instead, tight-lipped, like she was being polite. I chalked it up to stress, work, maybe just growing up. People change, right? But now, lying in the dark, I realized it wasn't change. It was departure. She stopped asking about my work. That was the next thing. At first, she'd text me midday, "How's the pitch going?" Or knock the presentation out of the park. Then the texts got shorter. "Busy? Lunch?" Then they stopped altogether. I'd come home buzzing with something to share, and she'd already be in bed, scrolling her phone, saying she was wiped. I figured she was tired. I figured we were both just tired. But really, she was already drifting away. Then came the perfume. Lana hated floral scents. Said they reminded her of department store samples and her grandmother's closet. She always wore warm, earthy tones: amber, cedarwood, vanilla. Then one morning she left wearing something new. Sharp, sweet, almost citrusy. I said, "New scent," and she waved it off. It came free with a skincare order. I should have known better. Then she started wearing jewelry she hadn't touched in years. Gold hoop earrings. A slim silver bracelet. Things I remembered from early in our relationship when we used to go to jazz bars or rooftop dinners. She had once told me those pieces felt too much for every day. But now she wore them to run errands or pop into the office. Still, I didn't question it. Maybe I didn't want to. And her phone, it slowly turned into a brick wall. Used to be she'd toss it on the table face up, screen lighting up with texts from her sister, Instagram notifications, news alerts. Then it started living face down. Always. And I noticed she'd move it with her. From the table to the couch. From the kitchen to the bathroom. Like it was an extension of her hand, like it held something fragile. Or secret. There were nights she came home late. Not late, just later than usual. Always with an excuse. Had to stay and help with a client file. Traffic was hell. Last-minute drinks for a birthday. The explanations came easily, like she had them rehearsed. And the first few times, I believed her. Then one night, she came in with damp hair. No rain outside. No umbrella. No gym bag. "Showered at the office," she said. "Gym downstairs." Figured it was quicker. I nodded. But something in me clicked. Or maybe it cracked. She didn't offer more, and I didn't press. But the question stayed with me. Who showers at 9:45 at night in an empty office? I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But belief doesn't erase the slow betrayal of behavior. She used to hum when she cooked. Little things, old pop songs, random melodies. It filled the space between us. Somewhere along the way, she stopped. We stopped cooking together, too. Meals turned into solo efforts, or takeout. I'd offer to cook, and she'd say she wasn't hungry, or she already ate, or she'd just have a salad. The worst part was how she made me feel like the crazy one. Every time I tried to check in to talk, she'd say I was overthinking it. Why are you being so weird lately? I've just been busy. Work is crazy. I don't need this too. And I started to wonder, was I being needy? Was I imagining this? No, I wasn't. Now I see that clearly. It wasn't that Lana was losing herself. It was that she was investing in something else. Something new. Or someone. There were times I'd catch her smiling at her phone. Not big, not dramatic, but just enough. I'd ask, "What's funny?" And she'd lock the screen. "Nothing. Just work stuff." Work stuff doesn't make you blush. She started disappearing on weekends. Brunch with friends. Yoga retreats. Work events out of town. One weekend she went to Santa Barbara for a wellness seminar and came back with a tan and a scarf that didn't belong to her. "Oh, it was part of the hotel package," she said when I asked. I didn't push. I should have. Because now I realized the lies weren't even the worst part. It was the erosion of int asterisk Macy. The space in our bed that used to hold shared laughter now held silence. The goodnight kisses faded into forehead pecks. Then nothing. We stopped touching. Not because we fought, but because we stopped trying. We existed beside each other. Like roommates who once had a spark, but no longer remembered how to light it. I started avoiding the living room when she was home. I'd sit on the balcony, pretending to scroll on my phone, watching cars pass in the night. I didn't know how to reach her anymore. She wasn't just drifting. She was building a new life inside the old one, like a second skin, and I was just there, watching, waiting for something to shake me out of it. And then came the day she started calling me Babe less. Not at all, actually. She used to say it offhandedly with affection. "Hey, babe, pass the salt. Babe, look at this meme." Then it became hey. Just hey. Now that I think about it, she stopped using my name entirely. Like even that felt too int asterisk mate. Or maybe too real. What hurt the most wasn't the discovery. It was realizing that I'd been watching it happen. In real time. And doing nothing. I rationalized, I made excuses. I convinced myself that we were just in a rough patch. That everyone goes through phases. But this wasn't a phase. This was an exit strategy. A slow fade. The love didn't break. It leaked. Like air from a tire. You don't notice at first. But one day, you wake up and you're stranded. Flat. And it's too late. Now I'm lying here, alone in this room that still smells like her conditioner. Remembering the way she used to say my name in the morning when she woke up before me. The way she'd rest her head on my shoulder during movies. How she used to text me from the other room just to say something stupid and make me laugh. All of it gone. Replaced by passwords she started resetting. Weekend bags with hotel shampoo bottles. Perfume I never touched. And a kiss I never received. People say heartbreak feels like a sharp cut. But this was a slow drown. And I let it happen. I loved her through the unraveling. And she let me. That's the part I'll never forget. The day it happened wasn't dramatic. It was midweek, Tuesday maybe, and I remember it because I had a meeting I didn't want to attend. One of those corporate strategy things where everyone pretends to care about buzzwords. I showed up early, mostly because traffic was light and I didn't feel like sitting in my car listening to more silence. Lana hadn't texted me all morning. Not unusual anymore, but still, it sat wrong. I parked a few blocks from the office, figuring I'd grab a coffee before the meeting. I was walking down 9th Street, scrolling my inbox, when I passed that little cafe near her building. The one with the chalkboard sign always bragging about hand-pulled espresso. I wasn't going to stop, but something made me glance through the window, and there she was, Lana, sitting at a two-top by the window. She didn't see me. She was laughing, and she wasn't alone. The man sitting across from her was in a dark gray suit, neatly pressed, expensive looking. His tie was off, first button undone. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I didn't need to. The way they sat too close, too familiar, told me everything. Then he reached across the table and took her hand. Not by accident. Not casually. He took it like he'd done it before. And then he leaned forward and kissed her. Just like that. In broad daylight on a Tuesday across the street from her office. She didn't flinch. She didn't pull back. She just smiled afterward, eyes half closed, like she was content. Like she was safe. Like she was his. I stood there frozen. The world around me kept moving, cars, footsteps, chatter, but I was a statue on the sidewalk, nailed to the ground by betrayal. I don't know how long I watched. I couldn't move. Couldn't think. I kept waiting for it to make sense. For her to look up and spot me. For the man to be a brother or cousin or something that would make this not what it looked like. But it was exactly what it looked like. Eventually, they stood and left, walking side by side, their arms brushing. I didn't follow. I didn't storm in. I just turned around, walked 3 blocks back to my car, sat behind the wheel, and stared at the dashboard. This wasn't a suspicion anymore. This wasn't pieces that didn't fit. This was confirmation. Cold and complete. And somehow that made it worse. There was no denial left to hide behind. No more telling myself I was imagining things. The monster I had felt breathing down my neck for months had a face now. And it kissed my wife on a Tuesday. I went through the motions the rest of the day. I showed up at the meeting. I nodded when people talked. I probably even spoke once or twice. But I couldn't hear anything. Everything felt muffled, like someone had shoved cotton in my ears. I kept replaying the moment over and over. The tilt of her head. The ease in her body language. How natural it all looked. That night, she came home around 6:45, like nothing had happened. She kissed me on the cheek barely and headed straight to the kitchen. I watched her pour wine. She talked about traffic. About someone at work screwing up a calendar invite. I nodded, pretending to listen. Pretending I didn't see her make out with a man in a cafe 8 hours earlier. I waited. I wanted to see how long it would take her to lie. We ate dinner like nothing was broken. I asked how her day was. She said it was long, back-to-back meetings. I asked if she'd gone out for lunch. She said no. Said she ate at her desk while reviewing project timelines. That was the lie. The first concrete one I had ever caught in real time. She said it like she'd said it 100 times before. Smooth. Casual. She didn't even blink. Later that night, after she showered and crawled into bed, she sent me a text from across the room. I heard your day was packed. Hope you're not too stressed. I miss when we used to talk more. I stared at the screen, wondering who she was trying to convince, me or herself. I didn't reply. I just watched her as she drifted to sleep. Peaceful. Like nothing was unraveling. The next morning, I woke up to another message. Hey, can we talk later? I've been feeling disconnected lately. It's not about you. Just want to be honest. That word. Honest. I almost laughed out loud. I waited until she left for work. Then I went to her laptop. She never logged out of anything: email, Slack, work calendar. She never thought she had to. And I never used to check. Until now. I didn't need much. Just enough to see if the cafe guy had a name. I scanned her inbox for clues. It didn't take long. David Elms. Subject lines like, Friday. Fun idea for next time, you made my week. I clicked on one, dated 2 weeks ago. Lana. Still can't stop thinking about Sunday. You looked incredible. That little scar on your hip, I never noticed it before. I like knowing things he doesn't. Dinner soon? Or maybe just room service? D. My hands started shaking. Not from shock. From rage. Quiet, steady rage that vibrated in my bones. She hadn't just slipped. This was ongoing. Rehearsed. Repeated. I closed the laptop and sat back, feeling like someone had scooped out my insides. I tried to find one redeeming thought, one excuse I could cling to. But there was nothing. She had burned the bridge, danced in the flames, and left me standing in the ash without a match. When she came home that evening, she looked tired. Said she had a migraine. I offered to grab dinner. She declined. Said she just wanted a bath and alone time. I nodded, because what else was I going to do? Tell her I knew everything? Not yet. Not until I was ready. I wanted to hear her say it. I needed to see if she'd ever tell me the truth without being cornered. 2 days later, I brought it up gently. I asked how she'd been feeling lately. She said overwhelmed. I asked if there was something she wanted to talk about. She said she felt like we were in a weird place, and that maybe we both needed to reassess our priorities. I asked if she was seeing someone. She laughed. Then she said, Seriously? No. Where would I even find the time? I looked her dead in the eye and asked again. This time she hesitated. Only a second. But it was there. That flicker. That micro-expression of panic before the denial. "No," she said. "God, I can't believe you'd even ask me that." And then she turned it around. "Have you been reading something? Is this one of those weird TikTok things where husbands get paranoid over nothing?" I didn't say a word, just watched her bury herself deeper. The next morning, she left for work wearing the same perfume she'd worn at the cafe. I stood in the doorway and watched her get in her car, wondering how she could lie with such ease, like she'd been practicing. And maybe she had. Later that day, I printed the hotel receipts, pulled calendar **TS, collected everything I'd need, not to confront her, to protect myself, because I wasn't looking for closure anymore. I was looking for clarity, and Lana had just made it crystal. I always thought I'd fall apart if something like this ever happened, that I'd go full disaster mode, shouting, throwing things, demanding answers, maybe even begging for her to stay. But when I finally accepted the truth, that Lana had betrayed me, not just once, but deliberately and systematically, I didn't explode. I calculated. There was something oddly empowering about it, like flipping a switch. One minute you're the fool staring at receipts and texts, and the next you're a man with a mission. The morning after I saw her with him at that cafe, I got up early, took Sam for a long walk, and by the time I got back, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't going to confront her in some dramatic, made-for-TV blow-up. I wasn't going to let her shape the story. I was going to take back control, quietly, methodically, and with no room for her favorite thing: ambiguity. I started with the basics, pulled my laptop out and created a folder on the desktop. Labeled it L Backup. In that folder, I began collecting everything. **TS of her calendar, emails she forgot to delete, photos she sent me from those work retreats. Photos that now, with context, looked a lot like lies wearing business casual. I cross-referenced travel dates with receipts. The more I dug, the worse it got. I found a hotel reservation from 2 months ago in Tahoe, right when she claimed she was visiting her sister to help with the kids. I remembered texting her that weekend. She responded with a picture of her nephew holding a toy train. The photo had been sent at 3:14 p.m. The hotel check-in? 3:08 p.m. same day. That was when it hit me how much of this had been staged, planned. She wasn't careless. She was strategic, and I had let her maneuver around me like a chess piece, assuming I'd never check the board. I found more. A reservation at a rooftop bar we'd gone to once on our anniversary. Booked under her name, 2 guests, Valentine's weekend. I spent that night alone. Remember? She had food poisoning. Claimed she was curled up at her friend Leah's place because the drive back was too far. She wasn't with Leah. She was with him. I found a photo in her iCloud. One she hadn't deleted. A mirror selfie. She was in a hotel bathroom, wearing that black dress she'd told me no longer fit. It had fit fine, apparently. And she wasn't alone in the reflection. A man's arm. Suit sleeve. Watch. Not mine. At that point, I wasn't even angry. I was clear. Anger was for people who still wanted something from the person who hurt them. I didn't want an apology or an explanation. I wanted a plan. So I made one. First, I packed a bag. Not just out of anger or symbolism. I packed a real bag. Basics. A few days' worth of clothes. My passport. My laptop. Sam's leash. I tossed it into the car trunk so Lana wouldn't see. Just knowing it was there made me feel less trapped. Next, I rented an apartment across town. A short-term lease. No frills, just clean, quiet, and dog-friendly. The kind of place with a coded door and no questions asked. Then I started backing up everything: texts, photos, credit card statements. Every app she used had a digital breadcrumb, and I collected them like a detective piecing together a cold case. I used to think I was bad at reading people. But now I was learning the language of deception. The final piece was the parking garage. I remembered she once parked in a structure near her office for a weekend seminar. She had sent me a blurry photo of a whiteboard with words like executive synergy and intentional leadership. I reverse-searched the location, then requested public security footage from the building management, citing a concern about a possible incident involving my vehicle. They sent me the footage. A full weekend of timestamps and camera angles. And there she was, Lana, arm in arm with him. Same man from the cafe. Same suit. Saturday afternoon. Sunday morning. Hand in hand. Laughing like they were in a rom-com montage. Not a care in the world. The same weekend she told me she'd be off-grid doing group reflection work in the woods. I took a screen grab. Labeled it Retreat. Eventually I hired a lawyer. Her name was Jane West. Sharp, calm, and had this aura like she'd been through this 100 times. She didn't blink when I laid it all out. Just asked questions and took notes. "You've already done most of the legwork," she said, flipping through the folder I handed her. "This helps. A lot. I don't want revenge," I told her. "I want distance and protection. If Lana tries to turn this around, tries to manipulate the narrative, I want to be ready." Jane nodded. "You're smart to prepare. Affairs are messy, especially when they involve shared finances and property. But what matters now is documentation. Stay calm, keep records, and do not, under any circumstances, confront her directly until we've filed." Felt strange. Legal. Like the collapse of my life had now become a file in someone's cabinet. But also, safe. I took her advice. I went home that night like nothing was wrong. Lana was in the kitchen, stirring something on the stove. She asked about my day. I told her it was fine. She kissed me on the cheek, then turned away too fast, like she couldn't stand the moment lasting even a second longer. I watched her from behind, her shoulders slightly hunched, her hand on her hip like always. For a second I felt a tug. Not of love, but of memory. Muscle memory. The way your body still turns to check the rearview mirror even after you've parked. But it passed. I started sleeping in the guest room after that. Told her I was having back issues. She didn't question it. We started functioning like coworkers in a shared space. Civil. Dry. Mechanical. Her calls started becoming erratic. Sometimes she'd stay out later than usual. Then she'd overcompensate by coming home with wine or Thai food or stories from work. The more she lied, the more she tried to balance the scales with fake kindness. But I wasn't buying it. She was trying to preempt suspicion, and I was letting her. I started noticing how she'd talk about her day. Always in vague terms. Busy, long, the usual, but never names, never details. It was like watching someone rehearse a script they hadn't memorized. Eventually, she slipped. She mentioned a project she was helping Daniel with. She laughed, said he couldn't figure out how to update a slide deck. I kept my face neutral. She never told me his name before. Now I had it. David Elms. I checked the company site. No one named Daniel in her department. Just David. A senior consultant. Transferred from Chicago last year. His LinkedIn photo matched the man from the cafe. I **Ted that too. That weekend, I took Sam and left. Didn't say a word. I drove to the new place, unpacked slowly, and sat on the bare mattress for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel angry anymore. Just relieved. For the first time in months, I didn't have to pretend. No more analyzing texts. No more fake smiles. No more wondering what perfume she'd come home wearing. I went to sleep with my dog at my feet and silence that didn't feel like a punishment. Felt like breathing. It took 3 weeks for the first letter to arrive. Cream envelope. My name printed in sterile, mechanical font. No return address, but I recognized the firm, one of those big-name family law offices with commercials on TV during daytime court shows. I opened it while standing in the hallway of my new place, still holding my coffee in one hand. Inside, an official letter from Lana's attorney. They weren't pulling punches. The letter accused me of intentional emotional manipulation, surveillance without consent, and coercive behavior resulting in psychological distress. There it was. The pivot I knew was coming. She wasn't just cheating. She was rebranding herself as the victim. At first, I just stared at the paper. The words didn't make sense. Not because I couldn't understand them, but because they didn't belong to reality. Not my reality. I hadn't yelled. I hadn't touched her. I hadn't even confronted her. I'd packed a bag, gathered facts, and left. But now she was trying to spin that as abuse. It was so absurd I almost laughed. But the more I read, the more my stomach tightened. This wasn't about truth. This was about positioning. Lana was trying to get ahead of the story. She knew what I knew, or at least she suspected, and she was getting ready to flip the script before I could open my mouth. I called Jane the second I finished reading. She didn't sound surprised. "They're baiting you," she said calmly. "They want a reaction. They're hoping you'll lash out or say something that can be used later." "They're framing me," I said. "She's the one who..." Jane cut me off. "I know. And that's why we don't fight this emotionally. We fight it with documentation. Stay calm. Let me work." And she did. Within a week, Jane sent back a formal response, not just a denial, but a counterfile that laid out every piece of evidence we had. Photos, hotel bookings, *TS, calendar logs, an email from David to Lana that she'd forgotten to delete from her work account. It read, in part, "I keep thinking about that weekend in Tahoe. Waking up next to you made everything feel right. I wish we didn't have to sneak around like this." Attached was a file named Q2 Presentation Draft. But the body of the email had nothing to do with work. Jane printed everything, organized by date and location, and hand-delivered it to Lana's attorney. No drama. No escalation. Just precision. We didn't hear anything for 5 days. Then came the silence. That was the shift. No more letters. No new accusations. No phone calls from Lana screaming about how I violated her privacy. The air got still, like she finally realized the game she was playing wasn't going her way. Then, one night, she called. It was close to midnight. I was brushing my teeth when my phone lit up. Her name on the screen. I let it ring out. She called again. And again. Eventually, she left a voicemail. I waited a full hour before I listened to it. Her voice sounded tired. Fragile. But underneath, still layered with that low hum of control. "I just think it's crazy that we're going straight to lawyers. I thought we meant more to each other than that. I don't understand how things got this bad. If you want to talk like adults, you know where to reach me. No apology. No truth. Just another attempt to reset the board." I didn't reply. I saved the voicemail and archived it. Jane filed the formal separation paperwork the next morning. Once that was submitted, things began to move. Lana was forced to respond through her lawyer, and when she did, the tone had changed. The bravado was gone. Now it was full of words like regret, confusion, grief. She wanted to mediate. She wanted a low-conflict discussion about division of property. She wanted shared custody of Sam. That last part made me laugh out loud. She never even walked him. In all the years we'd had him, she maybe took him on a walk a dozen times. But now? Now she wanted shared custody of my dog. Jane raised an eyebrow when I told her. She's trying to stake claim to something personal. It's not about Sam. It's about leverage. She wants to show she still has a stake in your life. She doesn't, I said. Not anymore. We filed to retain full custody of the apartment, the car, and the dog. And because we had everything documented, the timelines, the affair, the text logs, she didn't stand a chance. At one point, her attorney sent over a request asking me to soften the language in the filing. Apparently, it was emotionally aggressive to use terms like infidelity and misrepresentation. Jane rejected it. "We don't rewrite the facts for comfort," she told me. "We state the truth." Lana tried a few more moves. She emailed me directly against her lawyer's advice, asking if we could just sit down and talk through this without lawyers. I forwarded it to Jane without replying. A week later, Lana showed up at my apartment. She hadn't seen it before. Didn't even know where I'd moved. She must have followed me from work. I heard the knock and froze. Looked through the peephole. There she was, standing in a beige coat, holding something in her hand, a manila envelope. I opened the door halfway, keeping the chain latched. Her eyes looked tired. Makeup smudged. Like she hadn't slept in days. I don't want it to end like this," she said. "We had something. Don't you think that deserves at least one honest conversation?" I didn't respond. She held up the envelope. I wrote everything out. No lies. I swear. I reached out, took the envelope, and closed the door without another word. Inside were handwritten pages, front and back. A timeline. She detailed when it started. How long it lasted. She said David was a mistake born of loneliness. She said she lost herself. That she never stopped loving me. I read every word. Then I fed it all into the shredder. Not because I didn't believe her. Because it didn't matter. The moment she kissed another man at that cafe in broad daylight, she made her choice. Everything else was rationalization. A few days later, Jane called. We have a settlement. I braced myself. She's forfeiting her claim to the apartment, Jane said. She's walking away from the car, the dog, and the shared accounts. She just wants this over. It hit me then, she was done fighting. Because she'd lost. And she knew it. I signed the papers that afternoon. No drama. No press conference. No last-minute declarations of love. Just a table, a pen, and my name at the bottom of a contract that split our life down the middle. After it was official, I drove to a coffee shop and sat outside with Sam. It was a cloudy day. Quiet. The kind of weather where you think too much. I looked at Sam. He looked at me. Then he yawned and laid his head on my shoe. That was the first time I felt something like peace. Not joy. Not relief. Just peace. A clean page. Lana tried to call one more time. Blocked number. No message. Just one final ring that I let die in silence. I opened my laptop that night, pulled up the folder labeled L Backup, and stared at it for a long time. All the evidence. All the lies. All the pieces of a life I no longer needed to examine. Then I dragged it to the trash and deleted it, not because I forgave her, but because she no longer had power over me. And I was ready for the next chapter. The apartment was smaller, just a one-bedroom with creaky floors and paint that peeled near the baseboards. But it was mine. No perfume in the air. No lipstick-stained glasses in the sink. Just me, Sam, and silence that didn't feel like punishment. Morning runs became routine. Coffee black. No sugar, no conversation. I didn't decorate. I wasn't ready. A chair, a bed, a desk. That was enough. Lana's name still showed up sometimes. Missed calls, unknown numbers, emails labeled just read. I didn't. I archived everything. She rotated between tones. Apologetic, accusatory, nostalgic. None of it landed. I saved every voicemail though. Not for revenge. Just in case. Just to remind myself what survival sounds like. I wasn't waiting for redemption anymore. I was learning to breathe without her.